If you're interested in making six figures, then check out Ron Armstrong's Six Figure PM program. In just 6 short weeks, you'll be trained to become a digital project manager where you'll learn to build websites, apps, social media campaigns, and digital games. Best of all, you'll be the boss and manage your own team. No coding experience is required, and once you complete the program, you'll receive help in finding your first six-figure job. The fee for the program is extremely affordable, so check it out now at www.thesixfigurepm.com. Classes are starting soon, so you'll want to enroll as soon as possible. The former NFL player who was the inspiration for the Oscar-winning movie The Blind Side is now coming out alleging the entire story was a lie.
The former NFL player who inspired the Oscar-nominated movie The Blind Side is suing the couple he now says falsely claimed to have adopted him. Michael Oher says he learned earlier this year that the couple never actually adopted him, but he says tricked him out of millions of dollars. The former Super Bowl champion is asking a court in Tennessee to terminate the conservatorship he signed back in 2004.
Now, according to reports, former NFL star Michael Oher, who is now 37 years old, is filing a lawsuit alleging that his adopted parents, Sean and Lee Ann Tuhoy, who took him in when he was 16 years old, allegedly did not ever adopt him. And instead of going out here and having him sign papers for adoption to become a part of their family when he was 18 years old, what Michael Oher actually signed were papers for a conservatorship. Now, there's a big difference between an adoption and a conservatorship, and both of these papers can basically change the whole course of your life. Unfortunately, at 18 years old, Michael Oher did not know this, and he didn't know it because he was just too caught up in his feelings about the Tuhoys going out here and giving him attention and believing that they actually loved him, when in actuality for the Tuhoys, it was all about business at the end of the day. Now, the difference between a conservatorship and adoption is that in an adoption, you become a part of the family, and as part of the family, you have your autonomy and rights over yourself, one, and two, you have an entitlement to a part of the inheritance if your parents wind up passing away. So an adoption means that you are on the same level as your parents, and you still have your freedom and autonomy like any biological member of that family. Now, in the case of a conservatorship usually is something that is done to an individual if they are considered to be mentally incompetent and incapable of caring for themselves. Now, a conservatorship is something that a person usually is put under after a doctor does a psychological evaluation to deem whether or not this person is mentally competent to handle their own affairs. Now, an example of this was one I made in a previous video where I talked about Kanye West and many of the erratic decisions and erratic behavior he was participating in. And because I believe that Kanye West was somebody who was not mentally competent, I believe that he needed to be put under a conservatorship where people could supervise his actions and go out here and look out for his money to prevent him from going out here and making a rash or impulsive decision that could wind up costing him his fortune. Now, in the case of Michael Oher, this is a major betrayal as related to what he thought was a family he was going to be a part of. And Michael Oher, when he became a part of the Tuhoys, he thought that Sean and Lee Ann Tuhoy basically saw him as just another member of the family. But that wasn't the case at all as related to Sean and Lee Ann Tuhoy, as he alleges, because it's clear to me that they basically saw him as just another black buck on their slave plantation, because the way they treated him basically was they just didn't see him as a person, and they didn't see him as a person that they could trust. And because they did not trust him, what they did was go out here and pull this finesse where they went out here and looked to treat him just like the slave master would treat a slave on their plantation, by looking to try to take away their rights to their wealth and prevent them from getting economic empowerment. Because as related to this whole Blind Side story, it was sold into and made into a film which made over $300 million at the box office, and all of that money as related to the royalties for that film and the rights related to it has all gone to the Tuhoys, and it's all gone to the Tuhoys all because Michael Oher sadly was spellbound, and because he was looking to fit into the white family and gain white acceptance. What sadly happened is he lost all the rights to all the black dollars made as related to his story. This is the sad and tragic tale of what actually happened to Michael Oher. Sadly, what happened to him is that he wound up trusting he believes now to be the wrong white people, and sadly he wound up trusting them because he got caught up in his feelings, I believe, because he got the attention of some white folks, and because he got some attention from white folks, what he thought was these white people actually loved him, and he thought that they loved him and cared about him like a member of his own family. But in actuality, it was all business for those Tuhoys. It was all business for them, and all they were thinking about was going out here and taking care of their long-term paper, and that's something that Michael Oher wasn't thinking about, because he thought family would never betray him. Unfortunately, what happened to him is what happened to many of the slaves who were on the plantation. Many of the slaves who were on the plantation thought that they could go out here and trust the master. And sadly, as they went out here thinking they could go out here and trust the master, what happened was the master always pulled a swerve on them. And that's sadly what happened here as related to Michael Oher. What happened to Michael Oher is that he thought that he could trust white people, and those white people basically went out here and saw the bigger picture as related to wealth, while Michael Oher was only thinking about the riches of the NFL. Now, this is something that happens to many black men out here as related to money. They're just so caught up in their feelings about the attention they're receiving from a white person that all they're thinking about is this white person is going to make them rich. Meanwhile, they're missing out on the long-term wealth, because again, there is a difference between rich and wealthy. A rich person has lots of money, but a wealthy person has tangible assets and sometimes intangible assets that are guaranteed to make them money long-term. And what the Tuhoys did was focus on the wealth of Michael Oher's story, and they focused on the wealth that he would make long term. What they focused on were not only the rights to his story that were sold and made into that movie, they also possibly focused on the wealth that would possibly be made from things like his NFL pension. They were thinking about making the most money, and they were thinking about making money for themselves and their biological children on the back of this black man, basically treating him again like a slave and showing how little respect they had for Michael Oher, who was so caught up in his feelings about the good white folks going out here and telling him how much they loved him and wanted him to be a part of the family, when in actuality, they weren't looking for him to be a part of the family. No, they were looking for him to go out here and just be a dutiful slave who would go out here and do all of this work, and they would live the high life on his labor, no different than a slave on a plantation. Now, this whole story basically shows that you really need to be all about your own business, and you cannot trust anybody else to go out here and be about your business, because when it's about your money, you got to be able to have your head in the game. And this means that you got to keep your feelings in check about people, because if people are out here and they see you about to make some money, you got to put yourself first, and you got to go out here and read things for yourself. You cannot go out here and take anybody's word for it like Michael Oher did, because that's the big mistake he made when he was spellbound by these white folks. He took this white person's word that conservatorship and adoption were the same thing, when in actuality they were not the same thing. No, a conservatorship is all about sending the message that this person is incompetent and incapable of caring for themselves, and it's all about sending this message that this person is unable to take care of himself, and that's where it's a thinly veiled insult at Michael Oher as related to possibly how racist these Tuhois were. It's a thinly veiled insult because what it's saying here is that Michael Oher is not mentally competent because he's too stupid to go out here and manage his own money, and that was basically shown to the Tuhois when he went out here and signed away his money with this conservatorship. Now, this case may be a tough one for Michael Oher to overturn, because he may have a case as related to him being of sound mind, but the sad part is he wound up signing away everything at 18 years old, and he signed it away when he was a legal adult. He signed everything away when he was a legal adult, and that basically may jam him up as related to this whole case. This is a very tough one to see getting through, because it's just, again, he did this on his own, but there's legal precedent because Amanda Bynes was able to get a conservatorship broken years later, and Britney Spears was able to get one broken. But with Michael Oher, I just say, again, I look at this whole case, and again, it shows a betrayal of family. It shows that when it comes to these white folks, they don't really love you. No, they basically just see you as a cash cow, and they were looking out for their dollars while he was out here looking to feel loved. And this is why you can't bring your emotions into a relationship with other people when it's all about business at the end of the day. And that is the hard lesson that Michael Oher is learning at 37 years old, along with not going out here and trusting white folks. These are the two lessons that he's learning as related to this whole situation, because Michael Oher, while he was making the movie The Blind Side, didn't expect himself to get blindsided like this. And he didn't expect himself to get blindsided like this because he thought, oh, these white folks love me, these white folks care about me, when in actuality, when it comes to some of these white folks, it's all about business at the end of the day, and it's about them going out here making that paper, and they don't care if they make that paper at your expense because you're not a part of their family. No, you're just a guy who they just saw with some talent, thought they could get some paper on. And this is where Michael Oher basically jammed himself up at 37. He jammed himself up really bad. And now we see that the story of The Blind Side is not some unique story that Sandra Bullock won an Oscar for. We see it's the same old story of the slave on the slave plantation, and that the sports, like the NFL, is no different than the slave plantation, and the slave master going out here taking his prized buck and sending him off to another plantation to go out here and make money for him. That's all this is, sadly, and this is the sad story as related to Michael Oher. And again, we see how The Blind Side just became another story that's similar to that of what happened to many slaves out here who the slave master used to be boxers or bare-knuckle fighters, no different than those stories. And we see that they see Michael Oher in the same way they saw a slave. And this, again, is a story that shows black folks, again, we got to be on point and we got to be looking out for ourselves. And we can't trust anything put in front of us. When it comes to business, it's never about family. When it comes to whites and non-blacks, it's always business. And anything that's put in front of you, you always go out here and get a lawyer to look at, because you don't go out here and sign anything without having it consulted a lawyer. You don't go out here and sign any contract, because adoption is something that can be done at any time, because if a family truly loves you, they will use the word adoption. They will not go out here and say conservatorship, because conservatorship is something done to someone who is mentally incompetent and incapable of taking care of themselves. And they basically, again, insulted Michael Oher by saying, hey, you're so stupid that we're going to go out here and just put you under us. Again, this was an insult directed at him. This was a betrayal of his trust. And it just really shows, again, how there are no friends in business, and you have to look out for the enemies that are in your own family. Now, if you want to pick up some of my positive black fiction and learn more about the spellbound mindset that Michael Oher was in, you can pick up my novel Spellbound on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find Spellbound in other online booksellers like Barnes & Noble, the iBookstore, Google Play, and Walmart and Target. And if you want to see me make more videos like this, you can send a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, subscribe. Now available in paperback and e-readers, Spellbound, A Darker Shade of Black. Get your copy today at your favorite online bookseller. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.